My name is Galen Scott. In my day job, I'm the Associate Vice President for Academic Programs at Austin Community College, and in my spare time, I'm the Project Director for the Texas Corequisite Project. We are working in partnership with the Coordinating Board, with the Texas Success Center, and with Catch the Next to help all of us around the state learn more about how to implement corequisite education and how to meet best practice standards as best we can. Today, what we're going to talk about is continuous improvement, and I'm so pleased to be here to introduce Lindsay Doherty with RAND Corporation. We are working with RAND and AIR, the American Institutions for Research, on this continuous improvement project. You're going to hear from Lindsay today about what we mean by continuous improvement and what that might require of us as colleges and universities. And then towards the end of the conversation, I'll talk a little bit about a June conference that we'll be holding. But right now, I'm going to turn it over to Lindsay. Lindsay, we're glad you're here.
Thank you, Galen. So I'm really excited to be able to talk with you all today about continuous improvement. This is something that we've been working on for the last couple of years with 6 community colleges in Texas. And we think it's a really useful tool for improving programs like corequisites or new initiatives as you're rolling them out. And the real aim of continuous improvement is to make sure that you have strong, successful corequisites that lead to student success. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what continuous improvement is and provide some examples of how this might be applied for corequisites. So first, what is continuous improvement? A lot of people use this term continuous improvement to mean a lot of different things, so I thought it would be helpful to start with a definition. We see continuous improvement as an ongoing and structured process for educators to improve the quality of programs by identifying challenges, developing and testing options for improvement, and using data to inform program development. So what are some of the reasons why people are so gung-ho about continuous improvement? Why do people see it as so valuable? Well, I think one of the reasons is that continuous improvement is really adaptable. So it can be used in 2-year colleges and 4-year colleges, small colleges and big colleges, and it can be used to improve all types of programs and initiatives that you're putting into place in your colleges. In fact, continuous improvement was actually first developed to help out in manufacturing and healthcare. So it wasn't even first developed to be used in education. Second, continuous improvement really helps you all to identify, prioritize, and address real issues that you all are facing on the ground. There are a lot of different programs and policies being rolled out to colleges, and many issues that you all are coming up, encountering as you're rolling out these new programs. And it can be really overwhelming trying to figure out, which problem to focus on and how to address it. And so what continuous improvement does is it really provides a way to identify, prioritize particular problems that you're facing and make quick improvements to address those challenges. An additional benefit of continuous improvement is that it can improve the way that colleges use data. So oftentimes data use in college is focused on reporting for accountability purposes or for grant reporting, and it doesn't always address the important issues that you all are facing on the ground. So in continuous improvement, data is collected and analyzed specifically to inform improvement on the ground. And while data is an important part of continuous improvement, there's not a requirement that you all be research experts. Continuous improvement can be conducted regardless of the research and data capacity of your college. That said, it's definitely useful to have someone who has some familiarity with data and research on your continuous improvement team. And last, continuous improvement builds a culture of long-term planning and improvement. So ensuring that you all are thinking proactively and continuing to make improvements over time. So how can continuous improvement help corequisites specifically? Well, you all are having to scale up pretty quickly under House Bill 2223. And you all are trying to figure out which models you want to use, which students to put in different types of corequisites, and how to address some of the challenges that you all are facing on the ground. And there is some prior research on corequisites that might be helpful, but a lot of times this research doesn't really address the problems that you all face on the ground. And there's a lot of great professional development being provided by ACC and some of the other partners involved in the professional development. But a lot of times these sessions are anecdotal, based on one instructor's experience in one class. And so what continuous improvement will help do is to develop kind of more systematic evidence about what works and what doesn't. And it also allows you to gather evidence from your own students in your own context so that it's more relevant to your specific settings. And don't just take it from me. We actually talked to 36 community colleges across Texas as part of our study of English 1301 co-requisites. And continuous improvement was brought up over and over again as something that administrators and faculty members thought was really important to ensuring successful co-requisites. All right, so what does a continuous improvement process actually look like? I'm going to talk first kind of in the abstract about what a continuous improvement looks like, and then I'll provide a very specific example about co-requisites and how continuous improvement might look if it's being applied to co-requisites. So one of the most widely used approaches in education for continuous improvement is the Plan, Do, Study, Act approach. So that's the approach I'll be talking about today. So first, there's the plan stage. And during the plan stage, a college is really first identifying its problem of practice, the thing that it wants to focus on in the area where it wants to make improvement. So for example, this could be figuring out how to modify a co-requisite as you scale it down to lower scoring students to make sure that those students receive adequate support. Or it could be figuring out how to align instruction better across the college course and the developmental education support. Or it could be something outside of the classroom, like figuring out how to deal with scheduling and advising issues that you're encountering. And so after you define the problem of practice, the thing that you really want to try to address, the next step is to identify some very specific objectives and questions that you would like to address in a short improvement cycle, which is typically about a year or less. So something that you can really tackle and make improvements on in that year. And so once you've identified that more specific cycle objective and those questions, then it's about planning out all the different activities that have to take place over that year to carry out continuous improvement, assigning roles and responsibilities for those different activities, and establishing a clear timeline for making sure that all of those things get done. Next is the do stage. So the first part of the do stage is really delivering the co-requisite in a way that informs your continuous improvement. So this might be if you're testing out a particular change or improvement to a co-requisite, this might mean rolling out this new improvement. Or it might be delivering the co-requisite as you always have and simply gathering more evidence to understand the issue and to try to develop some improvements. And of course, anytime you roll out a program or a change, it's always important to make sure that you have clear guidance and ongoing support and resources to ensure successful implementation so that you aren't looking at continuously improving a program that's rolled out poorly. And finally, the last part of the do stage is to really collect some data on what's happening on the ground. So it's always important, to look at student success outcomes, and so I know many of you are doing that and should continue to do so. But many times, continuous improvement also involves gathering additional data to understand what's really happening in the classroom, or to gather the perspectives of students and college staff involved in delivering co-requisites. So after that comes the study stage. And this is really focused on assessing the data and reflecting on the findings with all relevant stakeholders to lay out some possible courses of action. In some cases, the evidence might not be sufficient to feel like you've really solved the problem of practice that you're dealing with, and so you may have to engage in additional continuous improvement cycles to continue working on the challenge. And finally, you have the ACT stage. This is where the college is really moving to develop a plan for improvement and acting on these improvements. This is the time when colleges might want to share continuous improvement evidence more broadly to build buy-in around the improvements and to identify resources that can be used to support improvement efforts. This is also a time when a college will begin a new continuous improvement cycle for the next year. So again, this can address the same problem of practice that you've been dealing with if you don't think you've fully resolved it, or you can move on to something else if you think that you've made some progress and can move on to something else. So now I've given you a general overview of what a plan, do, study, act cycle looks like, and now we'll talk about an example of what this might look like for a co-requisite. So let's assume we have a college that's offering a college algebra co-requisite. And they offer it 2 different ways. In some sections, both the college course and the developmental education support are taught by the same instructor. And in other cases, it's taught by a pair of instructors, with one instructor teaching the college course and the other instructor in charge of the developmental education support. So the administration has been looking at some data and sees that passing rates are somewhat lower in the 2 instructor pair sections of the co-requisite. And they really think that they want to do something to try to increase those success rates in those instructor pair, those 2 instructor sections. So based on, they have some conversations with faculty to try to figure out what they think the challenges might be, what the issues are, and together with the faculty decide that they think the issue might be alignment across the college course and the developmental education support. And so they decide that they would like to figure out how to better align instruction in 2 instructor pair models of the co-requisite. So they choose this as their problem of practice and then start to plan for the upcoming continuous improvement cycle. So first, the college identifies the specific objective that it wants to accomplish in that 12-month cycle. And so the college, after talking more with faculty and thinking about, okay, well, what can we really do to address these alignment issues, come up with a strategy that they think might work. They say, okay, let's require all instructor pairs to meet for 4 hours to spend time aligning their calendar and syllabi. Maybe some of this is before the semester starts, and maybe a couple weeks into the semester to kind of really refine things and make sure everything's aligned. And so this is what they're going to do: is they want to pilot this strategy, roll it out, test it, see if it actually helps with alignment. And then if it is working, then move forward and scale it up potentially to the college as a whole. So the next step is they need to lay out all the activities that need to be done to accomplish this objective. So they need to figure out exactly how this alignment strategy is going to work. And then they need to deliver the co-requisite as planned. And in terms of evidence building activities, they're going to, this might be a time to think about choosing a comparison group. So maybe not rolling it out to all instructors at once, but thinking about, okay, well, why don't we have one group that's going to test it out and another group that we'll compare to see if these alignment strategies really led to differences in alignment. Also, you'll need to, the college decides it'll want to collect some data that goes beyond just looking at student success rates in the courses. Next, once the college has defined all of its different activities that need to be done in the continuous improvement cycle, they want to assign roles and responsibilities for overseeing these different activities that are going to happen during the continuous improvement cycle. First and foremost, they'll need to identify a continuous improvement team, a group of people who will regularly meet throughout the year to oversee the continuous improvement process. And these will be the people who are ultimately accountable for making sure that all of these activities happen. But there might be people outside of that core team that have to be involved in some of these activities. So it's also about figuring out what other groups of people in the college need to be involved, and how to communicate with them about their responsibilities and assign the roles that are appropriate for them. Next, the college should map out a timeline for continuous improvement. So let's assume in this case that the college really would like to scale this alignment strategy, if it works, to all instructor pairs in fall of 2020. So mapping backward from that, they think, okay, well, we're going to need data then by spring 2020 to really make some decisions about scaling this. So if we need data by spring of 2020, then we're going to need to actually pilot the strategy in fall 2019 and collect the data during the fall semester. And if we're going to roll something out in fall 2019, we're going to have to start planning right now in the spring or in the summer to figure out how we're going to pilot and roll out these activities. And so now might actually be a really great time for you all to be thinking about, for the upcoming year, for 2019-20, what is going to be your problem of practice that you might try to address through a continuous improvement cycle. Next, the college decides to roll out the alignment strategy with just a portion of instructors because, you know, they again want to have a good, strong comparison group to look at. So half of the instructors pilot this new 4-hour meeting requirement and really work hard to align their syllabi and their calendars, and the other half of the instructor pairs do what they have been doing. Some may be doing that alignment and some may not. And then we're going to follow those two groups of instructors throughout the fall semester and up into the spring to see how their students do and what instruction looks like in their classroom. So the college collects a range of data. So again, they're going to continue to look at the student success outcomes that they've always looked at, whether or not students are passing that college level course in the co-requisite, and whether or not they're persisting into the next semester. But the college also decides to collect some additional data. So they really want to understand, are instructors actually following through with this? Are they spending more time aligning than they were when we didn't have this requirement in place? And so they're going to conduct surveys of the instructors to figure out how much time they actually spent with each other meeting and aligning their calendars. They also want to get perspectives from students on how aligned the instruction in the classroom actually is. And so the college decides to add a question to the end of course satisfaction survey, asking students about their perceptions in terms of how closely aligned the content in the developmental education support is with the college level course. So next, it's time to actually look at the data and see what happens after they've rolled out this new alignment strategy. And the college sees that passing rates are actually substantially higher in the courses, in the sections of the course where the instructor pairs spent that time aligning their syllabi and calendars. So they think this is pretty good news. They also look at other data that they've collected, and they see that, yeah, it does look like there may have been a challenge with alignment that was happening in the sections that didn't have this alignment in place, this strategy in place. You know, when instructors were kind of just doing things on their own, a lot of students in the class really did not feel like there were a lot of connections happening between the college course and the developmental education support. But when the college put this alignment requirement and this strategy into place, they see that there was a huge jump in the percentage of students who felt like the two components of the co-requisite were aligned. So next, it's time for the college to take action based on this evidence. They feel like this pilot of this alignment strategy has been really successful, and so they decide to scale it to all instructor pairs and make it a requirement for teaching co-requisites that you spend this additional time. They also identify resources to support instructors as they roll out this new strategy. And then in the next continuous improvement cycle, they feel like, okay, we feel like this is a good strategy, but there are some instructors who really actually aren't meeting for the 4 hours that they're supposed to. And so we want to spend one more cycle figuring out how to overcome the barriers to getting the instructors to actually spend those 4 hours together meeting. And so they pursue another continuous improvement cycle to continue addressing this challenge. So this webinar venue is not a great venue for questions, and so we will not be taking live questions today. At the end of the presentation, Galen will provide the email address that you all can send questions to if you would like to. But I also just wanted to let you know that there will be more opportunities to do work to understand what continuous improvement is, and additional resources as well. So in end of May, right around Memorial Day, we'll be releasing a toolkit that will really be a how-to guide that provides kind of a detailed step-by-step process for rolling out continuous improvement. And Galen's also going to tell you about a convening that will happen in June where your teams from your colleges will be able to actually work with a coach and work through this planning and this continuous improvement process throughout the 2019-20 academic year. So thank you very much. I look forward to working with you all.
Thank you, Lindsay. As Lindsay said, I wanted to talk a little bit about what we have planned for the next couple of months headed towards this June conference. The conference is scheduled for June 7th and 8th here in Austin. It will be built around small teams from colleges and universities, a team of 3 to 4 folks, and I'll talk a little bit more about what we want for that team in a minute. We have a goal that the teams that come here will get coaching and guided support for developing their continuous improvement plan that they will then launch in the fall of 2019. So the idea is to do a bit of pre-work. You'll have to put a team together, think through some of your challenges, some of the problems in practice. You'll have to settle on the problem in practice that you want to focus on. We'll ask for some preliminary collection of data and information. You'll submit your pre-work before the conference occurs in Austin. So it's a fairly straightforward process, particularly if you're a community college and you've participated in the Texas Pathways Institutes. This will all sound familiar. We're basically adopting that strategy of intentional development of a college team, intentional articulation of a problem in practice, intentional data collection, and then following that continuous improvement process that Lindsay described a few minutes ago. So, teams of 4. We want an administrator that's going to have some authority to make decisions over co-requisites. We want 1 or 2 faculty who are involved in co-requisite work, and then someone with some data expertise. Someone from your IR area, for instance, would be the recommendation. We will release an interest form. We want each institution that is interested in attending the convening in June to submit an interest form. So 1 form per institution. We have to limit the number of participants. We'll be bringing coaches in thanks to our partnership with RAND and AIR. And so there are some limitations on how broadly we can do this. We are going to limit this to 40 institutions of higher ed here in Texas. So you'll submit your interest form, and there's some information that we'll ask for you. Designate a team leader who will submit the form, your general plan for who the team members will be, your general sense at this point of what your problem in practice is. We also ask on that form if your institution is already doing some of this work and has some lessons learned or some insights to offer. If you're interested in presenting on what you're doing around continuous improvement, there's a part of that form that lets you submit that interest in presenting as well as attending the conference. So we'll keep that form open through March 29th, and then we will notify institutions in early April that they've been selected to attend, and then we'll send out the recommendations around the pre-work that will be required, and then that pre-work will be due on Thursday, May 23rd. We need time to get it to the coaches so that they can review it. We know that sometimes deadlines escape us all, so we'll need time to chase down a few folks who perhaps can't quite meet that deadline, get that in and get it to the coaches so that the coaches are providing really informed support and guidance to the teams when they come to Austin. So, as Lindsay outlined, the idea is that you'll pull together a small team, maybe a little larger than those who would attend the conference, but pull together a team, review some of your early data, talk with faculty, talk with advisors, talk about some of the big questions and issues that you're encountering related to your implementation of co-requisites, what things are most likely to help students, what things are hindering student success, what questions does your institution need to resolve to support better results in your co-requisite work. That really helps you hone in on your problem or practice. So you can choose a single problem or practice, or at best, maybe 2, 1 in math and 1 in integrated reading and writing. But really try and focus in on a problem that can be addressed with some work that's done differently in the 2019-2020 academic year. And so all of that will be shared with the coaches, and that will allow you, when you come to Austin for this conference, if your team is selected, to really spend time as a team working on that problem in practice with the coaching and really defining how you're going to tackle it and how you're going to collect data, both qualitative and quantitative, to see if what you're trying to do is really making a difference. That's the general idea. This slide has the URL for the form. I will also send this out through the Corequisite Google group that we've created, and we'll also ask the coordinating board to send this out through their developmental ed listserv as well. So we'll communicate this in as many ways as we can so that colleges and universities can think about whether or not this is something that would support the work that they're doing and be beneficial for them. If you do submit an interest form, it means you are committing to doing the pre-work as well as to engaging in the team time at the conference on June 7th and 8th. And you'll have this toolkit available prior to the conference convening. I also wanted to talk a little bit more about some other professional development opportunities that are coming up around Corequisite work. We've been asked to help publicize what else is going on around the state, not just the things that we're doing in partnership with RAND and AIR or with the Texas Success Center or with Catch the Next. So you'll see on this slide there's a regional forum around developmental education on March 29th, supported by the North Texas Community College Consortium. If you live in that part of the state and are interested in attending that. We will be offering another webinar in April, at the end of April, with Lindsay and a colleague from AIR on their findings from an experimental study of Corequisites in 5 Texas community colleges. So this is an update on the findings that they have, and I think that might be interested for lots of folks. And then Houston Community College is hosting a conference in Houston on June 21st and 22nd, Corequisite Courses, A Journey to Success. And there's a URL there if you want to investigate more about what they are doing. As Lindsay said, this isn't really a good way to take questions, but you can send any questions you have about continuous improvement to that email on the screen, txcorex@austincc.edu. You can also join our Texas Corequisite listserv. Again, send an email with your name and email address to txcorex@austincc.edu, and we will provide you we will add you to the Corec listserv, and then you'll get what we send out as part of the Texas Corequisite project. I think that's it for this, this webinar. We appreciate you watching. I know some of you will be watching this later. You're not watching live. We will provide a recording of this webinar on our website. We will also provide the PowerPoints that folks can download if they just want to look at the PowerPoints. So we'll do everything we can to make this information available. My thanks again to Lindsay Doherty from RAND and to all the folks around the state who are engaged in this work. It's meaningful, it's important, and I hope you consider submitting an interest form to attend our continuous improvement convening in June. Thanks very much. And thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you, Galen.